Louis, thank you so much for being here today. Greatly appreciate it. For those who haven't met you at a training or an expo, could you share with everyone your name, your company name, and where you guys are located?
Yeah, my name's Louis Herbert. I'm from Cannon Electric. We are out of Milton, Washington.
Very good. And what is your role there?
I'm strictly sales anymore. No more install for this guy. That's all I do.
Good. Electrical sales.
Yes, sir.
Very good. And last year was a very, very good year. It's your time to brag. What did you end up doing?
Just over 1.4 million.
Just
over. Just barely over.
That's a great year. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
How long have you been doing sales for them?
So this last year was my second full year. And I got hired there in 21. After about 9-10 months there, I decided to make the jump with zero experience. I decided it looked fun, looked like a challenge.
Yeah.
And then the following year, and then this year, just, two full years.
Okay, very cool. We'll get into that in just a second because I'd love to learn people's stories, how you got to Cannon.
Yeah.
There's a beginning at some point. So, after high school, did you go to college? Did you start working?
Yeah, so right after high school, I went to college. This is not what I wanted to do at all. I had full intentions of going into law enforcement, so I went to college for that for a while.
So, mustache?
That's sort of the mustache that's around that. It's just an expo thing now.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I went to college for that for a couple of years, and then kind of figured it just wasn't my thing.
Sure.
And I also knew that I didn't need college to get hired, so ended up kind of going through the process with that. But I've been around electrical forever.
Oh, yes.
So my grandpa was an electrician for about 15, 20 years, had his own company, and then decided, in the 90s to go be an inspector. Actually, probably early 80s, be an inspector.
Okay.
So he went to the state and he started inspecting. So I kind of grew up around it. It was just talking shop even at, a young age. So
yeah.
But yeah, after that, or after high school, I was in college. I was actually working at a sawmill simultaneously.
Okay.
We got laid off, and then but his dad said, "Hey man, you want to be an electrician?" I was like, "No, but I'll be there Monday."
Yeah.
And from there, it just kind of took off.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So what was your trek through electrical look like? Was it always residential service? Do you do commercial, industrial?
Yeah. So when I first started with the original company, it was strictly new construction, but it was like big custom homes. The first house I ever actually wired was like almost 13,000 square feet. So talk about intimidating when you're like 20 years old and have no idea what you're doing. You've talked about it forever, you just never done it. But I was with them for about 5 years doing new construction, a little bit of service here and there. I had left at one point and went to an HVAC company and did their electrical for them. It was pretty mundane, boring. It was the same thing every single day, 5-6 times a day. From there, I left and went to like a maintenance position for a huge steel recycling plant. So industrial, commercial, saw some power bigger than I'd ever dealt with before, which was kind of fun.
Yeah.
But there was no future there. There was no money to be made, and it was just kind of a dead end, wake up at 2 a.m. job and work until the day's done. So I left there, went back to my original shop, which was all new construction. And then was there for about another year and a half or so. COVID hit, we got laid off. I got a notice in the mail saying that my property taxes went up. And so I instantly got online and found Cannon and
found online. What about the ad caught your eye?
They worked 410s. That was it. Like, I didn't care about the money portion of it. I was just like, they worked 410s. And it looked appealing. So I literally, no resume, just hit apply now. And I was in contact with Jim about 45 minutes later.
Is that right? Yeah. So there's a good nugget, folks. Want to respond to those the submissions as fast as possible.
Yeah, for sure.
So what was that interview like? What do you remember?
It was super awkward. It was really weird. It was really weird. So he called me at like 7:30 and said, "Hey, let's set up a Zoom interview." I had no idea what Zoom was.
Sure.
So I ended up downloading the app, and it was a lot of weird questions that I wasn't expecting. I hadn't prepared for an interview. I hadn't even prepared for a phone call.
Yeah. I prepared to hit a button.
Yeah, I hit a button. That was I figured I was just hired after that.
Yeah.
But no, after we talked, he said he'd reach out, and it was literally about an hour later. He was sending over paperwork, and
wow.
I was signing paperwork, sending it back, and taking my drug test, and I think I started probably 2 weeks after I applied. So it was very fast.
Yeah, and I mean, you didn't know service history, right?
Not really.
You started as an installer, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, definitely an install. And like I said, the service side of it was very minimal. I mean, I could do it.
Sure.
It just wasn't
the process, how to sell, anything like that.
Yeah, I had no idea that's what Cannon was about. It was completely weird. Like I said, I saw 410s. I didn't read the rest.
Right.
Support for this podcast comes from Reese. Reese is a leading supplier for pros in the plumbing, HVAC, waterworks, and bath and kitchen industries. For over 100 years, Reese has been committed to helping pros like you build your business by providing access to top quality products backed by the resources, service, and support of product experts. On the job and need supplies but can't get away? Reese will come to you. They make it easy to keep your job moving forward with their rapid delivery services. In just 2 hours, Reese will deliver to any job within 15 miles of participating branches. It's just one more way Reese works for you. Visit Reese.com to learn more about Reese, your trusted supplier and partner.
So what was that like those early days as an installer, kind of seeing how everything flows, what the process is like? What were you thinking then?
I need a new job. This is weird. I don't like it. I remember the first couple weeks at Canon, I remember going to my buddy who's 20 years my senior, and he's like, dude, this is a good job. You should stay. Yeah. I was like, there's no way. Yeah. Like, I can't do it. It's uncomfortable. They sell people stuff. Like, that's not me.
Right.
I'm not a huge people person, contrary to what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. I actually had plans to leave. Like, I wasn't going to work there. I had an exit plan. So I got hired January 4th of 21. My goal was by March I was going to be out.
Wow.
And then I started just meeting the guys there that had been there for a while. Started talking to them. We hung out a few times. Kind of got my foot in the door with them and felt more comfortable. And they're all like, you should jump in and do the sales side. Yeah. There's no way. Like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And it had been this joke for 9-10 months. And finally I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just do it.
Right.
And I'd never ran a call. I'd never been out with anyone except for my manager at the time. Rode with him for like 3 days, and that was it. That was all I knew of sales. But yeah, it was uncomfortable. It was weird. I didn't like it. I didn't want to be there at all.
Right.
Obviously, it worked out.
Yeah. So when you said, okay, I'll give it a shot, had you been sitting in trainings up until that point and seeing the process?
It's funny you say that. No. So we had a training. We had a guy that would Zoom in with us once a week, and I hated it. Like, didn't want to be a part of it. In fact, I told Jim, I'm not doing this. Like, it's a waste of my time. I'm not going to sell ever. I'm just going to install. That's all I'm going to do. So I would leave. And there was days where I would Zoom into the meeting from my house and just leave from home to go to work. And I would just text in, let them know the Wi-Fi was bad and I was hanging up. Like, I just wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
And it was just uncomfortable. I didn't like it online. I didn't feel like I was actually taking anything from it.
Yeah.
So I really hadn't had any real training. Like I said, I'd rode with my manager a few times and maybe a couple guys once in a while when work was slow.
Yeah.
But never like a formal training up until I decided to just do it.
So you just did. So how did you know the process?
I mean, I kind of just figured it out. It to be honest with you, I kind of just made it up as I went. I came up with this process in my head that I thought was going to work, and it somehow, it coincided with what the process is. There was some differences for sure, but over time you kind of just work your own framework, and I got used to doing what I was doing. The first couple of months was a struggle because it was weird. It was uncomfortable, but I just figured it out as I went. Trial and error.
Yeah, you guys do training still, right? Are you more open to it now?
Oh yeah. So actually, the fun part is now, like, we've had Aaron come out a few times. I've trained with him a couple times. Now I actually run the training for the rest of the guys at work. So yeah, it was complete 180 shifts, and it's been a joke now for a couple of years that I was never going to do this, and yet here I am training the guys how to do.
So Aaron did basically like Electricians Advanced for the whole company.
Yeah.
What was that? What's that training like?
It's awesome. So for a guy like me who had no formal training up to that point, I was doing just fine. Like, I was figuring it out. I was making my way through, but it was a struggle. And I was learning the hard way sometimes, especially when your paycheck depends on what you can do and what you can't do.
Sure.
But it was a great insight to, like, what I was missing and little tips and tricks to really accelerate your career and your success. Again, there was parts of his training that were uncomfortable.
Sure.
To execute when I'm in someone's house. When I'm in a controlled setting, it was fine because I'm dealing with guys that I'm flipping crap to on the weekdays. But when you're sitting in front of someone that you've never met before, it was weird. It was hard.
Yeah.
But it took a little while to get used to. But once you get used to it, it works, man.
Yeah.
It's easy peasy.
What are a couple nuggets that you're like, that's a home run? I can't wait.
The actual presentation at the end, folding the paper, if still use paper. I hate using paper when I'm writing, but long term it works great. But folding the paper, price being last, like I said, it took a lot of getting used to, but man, it's a game changer. And the way, like the script that he uses for the presentation, it's just, you can't beat it.
If I'm not mistaken, I think I saw a video that you sent in right after a training. How much was that job you sold right after that?
Yeah, it was a couple weeks after he had left the second time. I think it was like early December. It was about 45,000. Yeah,
it's pretty good job.
Yeah.
What was that job? What all that?
It was everything except for a generator.
Is that right?
Double panel redevice. He had smoke detectors. We had bathroom fans. We had, new can lights. You name it. It was on there.
What was the reason for the call when you went with it?
His HVAC tech said he might have a bad breaker.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, I want to get into the whole process. Sure. I don't want to dig just yet. So that's awesome. Well, that's a neat story. All right. So let's talk about how you approach a call. So you get dispatched. What do you do to prepare for that call as you're heading away?
So typically I'll pull over. I'll read the notes on the call, see what the customer stated. We actually have the ability to listen to the phone call, so I'll listen to it too. If it's an existing customer that still is having issues in the house, I'll read previous notes from last time we were out there. I'll look at their safety evaluation, look at all those types of things if it's present. But really, I try and look and see what type of call it is. Are we installing something? Is it going to be a repair call? Typically, it's usually a repair call. No one usually calls us because the lights are working, so it's something along those lines. Yeah, reading the notes for sure. Definitely getting an insight of what I'm getting myself into.
Are there certain calls that they definitely send you that you like, that you always...
100%.
Which ones?
Yeah. It's usually like the outlets aren't working or panels making a weird noise or something like that. So some where the panel redevice is like my bread and butter. I love it. I've got the whole thing down. I just navigate the whole way.
Very good. Very good. All right, you get to the house, pull up, walk the door, knock, turn, do the spiel.
Yeah.
And they let you in. How do you start making an immediate connection with the homeowner? Is that so?
Yeah, I tend to try and talk about something that I saw like in the yard, or I mentioned that the house looks really nice. I try and usually my go-to is they have a really nice house. And it's a soft way of putting that it looks like you take care of your house, which you're going to have to take care of it here in a little while.
Yeah.
We're going to get. And so it's one of those things that it makes them feel good because, their house is nice. And even if it's not the nicest house, it's the nicest house.
Yeah.
But yeah, try and talk about some things that I see. I'm not, it sounds kind of bad. I don't try to be overly friendly.
Okay.
I'm not there to be your friend.
Right.
I'm here to fix your problem. Doctors aren't your friend. They tell you what's wrong. And so I don't get too cliche with them. It's just kind of straightforward. Let's figure out what's going on. But we have a customer info sheet that asks very basic questions regarding like whether it's a diagnostic situation, but like, when's the last time you had an electrician in your house? How long you lived here for? What year is the house? When did you notice this problem starting? And it really opens up dialogue for a lot of different things that you can transition from one spot to another.
Very good. Do you, at any point in that stage of the call, do any kind of credibility? My name's Lewis. I've been doing this for so long. Or do you kind of prefer to do something like that later on?
I kind of tackle it as it comes up.
Okay.
I don't want to talk too much about myself. I want to address their issue. I feel like that sometimes speaks more volume than talking about my experience. My experience will be displayed as I am able to fix their issue as the call goes on.
Okay, so let's go to that Big Daddy call you had.
Yeah.
So, okay, you made, you went through your questions, and then they're like, okay, you should have them take you to the panel at that point?
Yeah. I mean, in that situation, he was having issues with his heat pump, and so, on the way there, I said, well, obviously we're looking at the panel, right? Like it says right here, there's a breaker buzzing, or I think it was a bad breaker. That's what the HVAC tech knew or thought. So I had him take me straight to the panel, and then had him take me to his AC unit. And it was a tricky one because it's such an isolated spot. Like I don't get to walk around the house and look at everything. I'm looking at a panel, I'm looking at a disconnect, and a heat pump that I have no idea what I'm looking at.
Right.
But I instantly took the panel cover off. looked at the breaker that the HVAC tech had turned off just because he thought it was an issue.
Real quick, when you open that pan, what the homeowner's with you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, what do you say? Does he have any say as you open the panel, or do you have any kind of, some guys have a certain kind of, pizzazz when they do it.
Yeah, I mean, it depends, but usually it's like an excited wow. Like, how long has this been here? Usually the response I get, why? Is it bad? Well, it's not good.
Yeah.
Well, why? And so now the conversation is switched from, and this is what I did with this guy. The conversation switched from the breaker to just the condition of his panel, how the condition of their panel can affect the breakers in your panel. His was buzzing as I took the breaker off. This is one of those situations where I knew something was wrong, but it was really hard to justify a diagnostic.
Right.
I didn't feel good about it, so I took the breaker off, showed him it's burning, it's buzzing. This is your problem. I can fix just the breaker, or we can fix it long-term and fix everything right. It was fortunate enough for my situation. He'd lived there for 45 years. He built the house. So he had a lot of pride in it. He had a lot of investment in it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really easy to explain and create the urgency that he had some issues in his house that were going to cause him some bigger problems long-term if they weren't fixed right away.
Do you, at that point, go ahead and kind of give them options on replacing the breaker, doing the whole panel, or, and obviously that ticket opened up a whole lot later on, but
yeah.
Do you give them options for that right there at that point?
If he asks, and he did, he goes, well, what do you suggest? And I go, well, in this situation, it's perfect. Like, you got to replace this panel,
right?
Like, plain and simple. It's just what it comes down to. He had 2 panels. And he goes, well, how do we do that? And so I explained to him the process. We schedule disconnect and yada, yada, yada. But you've got a couple different options as far as a panel replacement goes. You can do a basic 1960s technology panel, which is what you've got. Breakers that were invented, 80 years ago that don't work very awesome, which is why you're having the problems you're having now. Or you can install what the industry standard is now. And this is where I kind of start guiding them into a bigger picture.
Yeah.
And it's something I've really been working on the last 5 or 6 months, but I tend to tell people in situations like yours, every one of my clients that I deal with goes with this other option. They all like the new industry standard. And I start explaining what a FireGuard breaker is or an arc fault.
Well, please go ahead and do it. Let's see the special sauce.
Okay. So, it's well, you've got a couple options. We can do a basic 1960s technology panel, which is an awesome option. It's safer than what you currently have, but there's other options you can do. Most everyone that I deal with in a situation like yours always goes with what we call FireGuard technology. It's the industry standard. It's where things are going now. It's super safe. It's going to tell you if you've got any sort of pre-existing conditions in your system. If you've got loose connections, if you've got arcing and sparking that's going on, these breakers are going to tell you. Whereas the breakers you currently have, you'll never know. It's kind of nice because you're playing ignorance is bliss, and it's pretty cool. And then I go put in a brand new breaker, and you know, what the heck, dude? This doesn't work for my house. It's actually an awesome thing. But it can be a nuisance sometimes because it's going to trip if you've got loose connections. Luckily for you, though, I've got this tool in my truck. I can go check every plug and switch in your house and tell you if you got loose connections. At least at that point, it's going to give you a better idea of if you install these FireGuard breakers, if you're going to have any issues. But if we do see that you're going to have some issues, I got to fix that too. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
So was he ready to replace both?
Oh yeah, that was lights out. It was done.
So then you go ahead and check all the other receptacles, right?
Yeah,
and it allows you to scope out the rest of the house because you already told them you need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, are you filling out the inspection? Do you guys do it digitally? Do you like paper?
Paper, yeah.
Support for this podcast comes from Minuteman Press to Pair. Minuteman Press to Pair is your preferred print, marketing, and direct mail service provider, helping Certain Path members grow their business since 2001. Through their knowledge and experience with the programs, you'll receive a fast turnaround and satisfaction guarantee on price guides, inspection forms, club materials, and much more. In addition to specializing in your proprietary tools, Minuteman Press to Pair also provides custom design services, templates, and a wide range of promotional items to help you market your residential business. Like you, they're committed to your success. Minuteman Press to Pair is the only Minuteman location affiliated with the Certain Path Partner Network, providing member rebates and discounts. Contact Denise today for more information at 877-203-4769, extension 301.
That's kind of where I brought up the safety evaluation. It's like, and I say the same thing to everyone else too. I say, have you used this before? I know they haven't. And I'm like, no, I've never used you. It's like, cool. Well, since I'm here, I'm going to do this whole system check. And since we're going to go inside and check plugs and switches anyway, this is the other things I'm going to look at. When I first started, the safety evaluation or inspection, whatever you want to call it, was super uncomfortable for me.
Sure.
I felt like it was invasive. I felt like it was obvious that I was trying to upsell or find something wrong with your house. And so I found a way to make it a me thing, not a you thing. And so I usually tell people that in doing this evaluation, it's really for our company. I want to have this so that if you do have any problems in the future, all of our technicians look back to this. Then we know exactly what's going on. We have an idea of what the condition of your house is, but it's also good information for you because you're not an electrician. If you were, you wouldn't have called me. And it always gets this little laugh. But I explain to him, I want you with me the whole time we're doing this because I want you to see what I'm seeing, and I don't know your house. I don't know where rooms are. And I don't want to go anywhere that you don't want me to go to.
I like it. It's color coded.
The eval?
Yeah.
I
see yellow, red, green, yellow.
Ours is just green and red.
Green and red.
Yeah. It makes it a little more decisive for it.
So in this call, walk me through it then. So you've explained what the safety evaluation is. You already got the double panel sold.
Yeah.
You start. Where'd you go next in this call?
So I have this voltage drop tester. So I start next to the panel. I want to get a baseline. Like, what does it look like at the panel? And then I want to hit a few plugs as we go, and I want to get as far away from the panel as I possibly can. Mm-hmm. And I explain to him as we're going that our code book says 5% voltage drop is max. Anything above that, it's to be considered a fire hazard. I have a little bit of grace when it comes to that. If you have a 5,000 square foot house, you're going to have higher than 5%. But I set a number. Like if I'm seeing over 8%, we got to talk. So we start kind of navigating through the house. We're checking plugs. And I'm pulling things out, showing them why they're bad, showing the stab lock connections or quick connect, whatever you want to call them.
What do you tell? Again, they're not an electrician. I'm not an electrician. What do you say if you see a bad connection or an issue, so they understand why that's a problem?
I explain to them why the stab lock connection's bad. I explain that when you've got a panel that's heating up, it's going to start heating up wires, and all electricity is heat. Our code book is all about heat dissipation. That's what it comes down to at the very end of it. When you've got wires that are heating up and expanding and contracting, it's going to loosen connections over time. And after a certain amount of time, you've got way too much resistance. And my favorite analogy that seems to click with almost everyone, whether you're a car guy or not, is if you have too much resistance, it's not good for your house. If you're driving down the freeway at 60 miles an hour, there's already just a natural resistance. But if you throw your e-brake on and you still try and go 60 miles an hour, that's extra resistance that you didn't need, that you shouldn't have, because it's going to cause problems. Your house, it's got the e-brake on. And then it's just like, oh.
So then they go, what do I, I'm assuming,
how do we fix that?
Yeah, what do I do about that?
Yeah. And I explained to them how we fix that. We changed the connections, call a solid state connection, or a pigtail, super technical, explain to them why that's better. We're taking away failure points as we navigate through the house. We're changing connections. This is where I sometimes over-explain, but I feel like it's one of those areas where sometimes it's warranted, depending on the person. But that's usually where I spend most of my time explaining why it's so important.
Sure.
That those connections have to be fixed, especially since you already decided that you want to put FireGuard protection in your panel.
Right, because it makes sense, because you said protection is important to you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you will go outlet by outlet and just check one by one, and then all of a sudden replacing
every time.
So when you when you kind of create, do you create options, or you just say we're going to do them all, or how do you like to present?
In this situation, I mean, this kind of progressed into a couple new can lights in the kitchen, but and a couple bath fans, and those were his idea. But in just like the very basic panel redevice situation, I'll ask them what they want to do. And then ask if it's okay if I create some options just based on my experience and what I've seen in the past for their type of situation. And there's never, a no from that. It's always, well, absolutely, yeah. I mean, you're the professional. You make up options for me.
Okay.
And I usually tell them, like, I'm going to make some options if it's okay with you. I'm going to put a few on there so we're just not pigeonholed into one. But let's make a couple. That way we can at least pick one that works best for you today.
So you pretty much have them confirmed and locked into their top option without price being no.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to putting them in a category by themselves. People go, well, what would you do in this situation? If this was my mom's house, this would have been done yesterday. everyone else that I deal with that has your problem, that has this issue going on, they always choose to do everything.
Yeah.
And really, all of them, every single one of them.
Sure. So in the instance, in this particular call, the can lights and the fans, so you're in the kitchen with the lights. Do they bring it up, or did you go, oh, how does the lights? Because it's a total disconnect, right? In terms of why you're there.
Yeah, I went from a diagnostic type situation to something cool in there.
Yeah, right.
It was his idea. We were in the kitchen talking. I was actually getting ready to start writing options, and he brought it up. And he's like, "Is there anything you guys can do about can lighting in here?" I'm like, "Absolutely."
Yes,
called the right guy.
Yeah.
So he kind of brought it up, and then I asked him if there's anything else that he can think of while we're there that he wants us to take a look at. And he's let me call my wife. So he calls his wife, and she's like, the freaking bath fan and the master bed, and he's like, the bath fan. So we went in there. I'm like, how about the other bathrooms? Like, they're all the same age, right? And like, let's talk about those.
Mm-hmm.
And so it turned into a couple bath fans, a few can lights, and obviously some dimmers were going to come with the redevice that we were going to do.
Right.
So yeah, it was his idea, but then after he kind of brought it to my attention that there could have been more. I was so fixated on this project and this house, and I was trying to figure everything out.
Right.
You forget to ask sometimes, what else there is that you can do for him if there's anything else.
Yeah.
So he brought it up. He reminded me of it, and then it kind of just progressed into some bath fans. And
is that everything? Or are we missing something at this point?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. What else can we do?
Right. We're here.
Yeah.
We're here, right? Let's get locked in. Okay, so at that point, are you sitting down with him to write out all this stuff?
Yeah, I'll sit down with him. I typically don't want him sitting too close to me, just because I want to have all the price. I don't want him to see prices and get nervous or anxious. I really try to not go to my truck, just because we are doing everything by hand. It does take me a minute. I've got to calculate discounts and all these things. And really, there's ways to make that book work for the customer as far as price. I'm not there to give you the highest price. I want to give you the best quality product for the lowest price I possibly can without losing my job. So I really try and make that book work for them and ultimately work for me in the end. So I don't want them anywhere near me. I usually tell them if they got something to go do, this is going to take me a while, make yourself at home. I'm going to sit here and do some math.
Yeah.
And then they'll either walk away or they'll sit there and talk. That's usually when it's nice having an apprentice, because they don't get to talk all day and they finally just get to chirp. And so they just go off. And so actually I had my apprentice that day, and they just sat there and talked while I did some math. And so it worked out.
At this point, before obviously getting to the option, are we talking about what was on the inspection report? I mean, maybe it wasn't someone that had the opportunities to walk with you the whole time. Like, I would love to, but I got a conference call.
Yeah.
How do you talk about the safe inspection at that point if you haven't,
if they're not there with me?
Yeah, the whole time.
Yeah, it happens all the time. I typically will tell them, like, do whatever you got to do. Just let me know where you don't want me. I'm going to go through this whole thing. At the end of it, let's sit down and talk about it. And then, so basically, instead of having them walk with me, we'll just sit there and talk about it.
Right.
And then I'll let them build options based on that, because usually when they're walking with me, they're going to build options, or at least we're going to build options together.
Right.
If there's anything on the sheet that you want me to fix, we'll go over it, and they'll go through and read. Is there anybody else that needs to know these things that isn't here? Is your wife here? Is your husband here? Like, is this a mutual decision that you guys have to make? If so, let's get them on the phone so I can explain some technical questions for you.
Right. Again, you're getting them locked into what they want before price becomes an issue.
100%. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So when you get to that point, we're talking about, what differentiates you guys. Is that before you get into the options, I guess, and show them what ultimately the price is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what all do you say at that point? So you didn't go through what your guarantees typically are, or just, hey, we're back. Are you talking about? Remember, I asked earlier about your bona fides. With this for a while, or is that at this point?
Yeah. At that point, I will talk about the warranties and guarantees. Talk about the parts that we use, that type of stuff. Like I said, I don't get too crazy into it unless they start asking specific questions.
Sure.
I want to give them enough information about everything, but my goal is to give them so much information about what I'm going to do to fix their home that we're not going to branch too far away from that. Like, I want that to be the focus. I don't want it to be me being the center of attention there. I want it to be they're the center of attention.
Sure. Do you guys have club membership?
Yeah.
There you go. When do you? How many times is that being mentioned? You bring it up early in the call, or is it just the call center mentions it and you talk about it? And at this point of the call, at the end of the call, just before talking price, or how do you use it?
All the time. I know that, like, sometimes as far as like the framework goes, there's specific times to bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
I'll drop that bomb 100 times throughout the call. I'll explain that we're talking about the panel. Cool thing about the panel is you'll be a member with us. We're going to come out on the year ever for the next 2 years. We're going to check on everything that we've done, make sure it's working properly. And if it's not, we're going to fix it for you. So we've got some awesome guarantees and warranties. And then from there, but I'll just leave it alone. Like, it's just like having a conversation like this. Like, it's just casual and we move on.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get to like, their ears perk up and they're like, the what?
Yeah.
Well, we can talk about it right now if you want. But we'll mention it a handful of times throughout the call.
But I like you talk about value stuff, not price stuff.
Yeah.
It's not a throwaway item. It's not a coupon.
Yeah, no, I don't usually sell it as a savings plan. Sometimes you will.
Yeah.
Depending on the person, but
Sure.
it's not a discount program. It's a membership.
So in this case, all right, so you plan to see with club, or is the club in all of your options?
Every single one. Yeah. It's not an option.
You make them take it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to pay 15% more or you can pay 15% less. It's
Yeah.
totally up to you. That doesn't make a difference to me.
Right. So then you walk people just like this gentleman. You go through hey, this is everything you wanted, and then how do you decide what to take away from option to option?
I try and make it not make sense to choose anything else. Obviously, I'm always going to give them what they want in every option. If he wants just a diagnostic to fix his breaker, he's going to get that in every option. In the very generic state or generic call like this, I would have taken away the redevice at first. In fact, I think with his, I took away the redevice. I took away one panel. The other one was going to be FireGuard protected. We were going to keep the other panel, put FireGuard breakers in that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think then I did both panels on the next one, which is standard breakers. And the bottom one was like a handful of things, some surge protection and some diagnostic type things.
So when you guys sell new panels, they automatically come with a surge. You sell it.
Yeah. Surge comes with it for sure.
Right. What do we get at this point, or I shouldn't say earlier in the call, do you explain to him what because again, I didn't come from this industry.
Yeah.
You do to me.
Yeah.
Power steps, right? That's good for everything.
Sure.
Do you talk about what that is at the panel? And this new panel comes with surge protection, and this is what it does.
Yeah, there's times where I'll bring it up then. When I'm going over the safety eval, the inspection, there's a category for that on there. And I'll ask, where is it at? And they're like, well, I've got these surge strips. No, for the whole house. It's a code requirement. You don't have one?
Right.
They're like, well, no, I guess not. Okay, well, don't worry about that because when we fix your panel, it comes with one anyway. I just didn't know if you already had one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we'll talk about that. And again, sometimes when I'm talking at the panel, I'll bring it up then.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on the person, depends on if we've gone over the eval yet. But yeah, definitely all those things get touched on. There's not one thing on that page that doesn't get talked about.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, so you're taking strategically away some things. Everything's at a finance price.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Well, what financing has been kind of working for you guys lately?
As far as like company wise?
Yeah, like what are most of your customers going with?
So we're using Synchrony, and then we just got hooked up with, I think it's called GoodLeap. I haven't really used them at all. Truthfully, I don't finance a lot of people.
Okay.
There's a handful.
Yeah.
I try and steer clear of it just because it's a pain in the butt for me.
Yeah.
It's just an extra step. But if it comes down to it, we'll figure it out.
Sure.
But
you still show the finance price.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, because it makes it look smaller for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you unfold the options, right, and then you shut up.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, in this particular call, this guy he was all in right away, no doubt, or did he go?
He went, yeah. He was like, wow, that's a lot of money.
I thought I wanted to buy a car. I just did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and I don't talk. Once I give him the price for the top option and I've explained to him that's what he asked for, I stop talking. If there's a statement made, I don't respond to it. The only time I respond if there's a question. And I'm like, God, that's expensive. Uh-huh. Why is the price so high? Well, and you start going into it. So he read over the other options, and he was. I mean, we sat there for probably 25 minutes in just dead silence. And at first, that used to be really uncomfortable. Now I just know that I won. I just don't know which one I've won.
Yeah.
And so he kept going back to the top option, asking questions about that one, asking questions about the second, the third.
So he goes. Well, what did he say? What was the risk? Like he asked a question. What was the question he asked? Why is it this expensive?
Yeah, he's like, oh, why is it? Why is it so expensive?
So what do you say to that?
And his situation, like, well, there's a lot of time that's going to be spent in your house, and we're going to be here for at least 5 or 6 days. Your house is massive. That's what it comes with. You've got 2 panels, so materials are expensive. We also have overhead. I'm not the only employee that works here. We got a bunch of guys. We have insurance. We got fuel to pay for. There's a lot of things to consider more than just what you have in your house. And he was a business guy, so he understood. And that was pretty much the only question he asked. And then he asked if he could think about it. And this is where I started having fun, because we've already closed that objection a long time ago. We closed that objection when you agreed to do everything an hour and a half ago. I was there for almost 5 hours. We'd already closed that one. I already asked you if someone else needed to be present. And the answer was no, I'm making decisions. Okay.
You brought it up, definitely.
He did. I really got to talk to my wife. I really got to think about this. I'm like, well, can I give you a couple things to think about? He's, sure, I guess. I'm like, awesome. Well, I'm going to go put your panel cover on. So I went over the whole safety thing again. Think about the safety. I was like, I know you're going to think about price. Let's not think about price. Let's think about the safety aspect of this, the longevity of the parts that we're putting in, the fact that you said you're going to die in this house, you're not leaving. Let's make it right. I'm going to go put your panel cover back on. I'll be back in 15 minutes. So I'm setting a timeline.
Yeah.
You get to think about it for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
After those 15 minutes, I'm going to come back in and we're going to get you on the schedule. Sound good? Yeah. Okay.
That's exactly what you said.
So to say,
that's great. Yeah.
I'll go back out there and I'll put the panel cover on. Sometimes I'll tell them too, I'm going to go out there, put this panel cover on. I'll be back in 15 minutes. I'm going to make a material list for option 1. When I come back in, we'll get you on the schedule. Just assuming that that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I'll go out there. I'm not making a material list. I'm not doing that yet. I'll take some pictures and get some stuff ready for it. Yeah. But we came back in and he goes, he's like, man, I really got to talk to my wife. And I go, I got all day to wait. I don't. It's 5 o'clock. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I want to go home.
Yeah.
But 45,000, we'll sit around for a minute.
Absolutely.
He's like, let me do this. He's like, can you guys just hang out for like a half hour? I'm like, yeah. So he left. His wife's a doctor. He went and bugged her at her office.
Really?
Came back with a check for $23,000, whatever it was.
Wow. Well, he trusted you enough to leave you at home alone.
Well, we went over our commitments. I'm drug tested, background check. I'm not going to steal your junk, you know?
Yeah.
So we're good.
So were you, that was a good win.
It was a good win. Yeah. Yeah. It was exhausting, but we made it through. That was a long night, but it was fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know if, I think that pretty much hit on all the objections right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's awesome. That's fantastic. So, all right. So they gave you the deposit. It's 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
You want to make sure he doesn't go, oh God, what did I just do?
Yeah.
And cancel.
Mm-hmm.
What do? Do you start the job a little bit?
We started. We didn't that night. He actually had somewhere to be, so
You're like, I ain't push it.
yeah, I was like, that's okay.
Yeah.
No big deal. I called my manager, Jimmy. He's like Johnny on the spot with those things. If there's a job that goes through like that, we're going to find a way to get someone out there the next day.
Okay.
And like, we're going to start the things that you could potentially back out on.
Right.
We're going to knock those out, at least get them started so you're stuck, you're locked in.
Yeah. Yeah, real quick. I didn't ask you about that. So do you bring up, I'm not going to be the guy that comes out here and does the work? I'm sure that comes up at some point.
Comes up all the time.
I really like you. I want you to go out here do it.
My excuse, I have a couple excuses, and then they're legit. So where my house is like an hour away from our shop. I don't typically work in my hometown area. Once in a while I do, but my excuse is I live so far away, they're not going to have me come back up here. But I'm going to hand select a couple guys that are going to do this for you. Guys that I trust the very most. Everybody here is a rock star, but there's a guy that I can think of right now that would be best for your job. And if you really would like me to be here for the first day and walk them through, that way we're on the same page, I can do that. I can make that happen for you. But it gets brought up all the time.
Sure. Oh, I bet. Because you built, you made a connection, and they're like, I really trust you. I know you said you're not the warm and fuzzy guy.
Yeah.
Obviously, I trust you because we're spending a lot of money with you.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Very good. So let's say in this case, it didn't, he's like, I need a night, or I need to really think about it. What's your follow-up process on a call typically?
So in our debrief, and we use the Certain Path app, there's a follow-up on there. I'll sometimes put notes there to have them schedule me to make a phone call the next day, or sometimes the office makes a phone call. But if I feel like I had them on the hook and they really truly do need some time to consider it, because some people do, they're not going to make a decision same day, or maybe they figure out finances. I'll make sure that we make contact with those guys within the next couple days. I usually try and make it not necessarily the next day, just because I don't want it to be pushy, but at least a day or two.
Okay. And then how many times will you call before it's like, darn it? It goes back to the office, and maybe 6 months, so the office will call out or something like that.
Yeah. I mean,
You go until you hear a no.
no, I don't push too hard. I mean, there are times where I'll push hard. The only times that I really push hard is when I've closed every objection in this entire call, and you start pulling stuff out that isn't legit anymore. Like you don't get to do that to me. It doesn't work. Like, you can say no and get out of my house, and I'm going to leave it alone.
Yeah.
But don't tell me that you don't have to talk to anybody else, and now all of a sudden you got to talk to your son-in-law's brother.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that. Get him on the phone. But if it goes beyond the follow up and they're like, we're going to get some other bids. Cool, awesome, good luck.
Yeah.
Good for you. Like, and in that situation, I have it happen all the time. I will give them my card. I don't care who you choose to do your job. If you have questions, let me know. Even if there's another company, we'll walk you through it.
Yeah, I should ask. You said other bids. Do you experience a lot of the third guy and got 2 bids in front of you?
Sometimes, yeah. And I'll just ask them, where am I at? Like, where am I on the docket? How many guys do you have them come out? How many bids do you want to get? I only want to get 3. Cool, I'm going to give you 4 today. I'm going to give you 4 bids today. But yeah, we get it all the time. It's one of those things where it's such a competitive market where we live. There's a lot of companies. And it comes down to, do they want quality or do they want cheap?
Yeah.
Do you want fast? What are you looking for? Are you trying to sell the house and get out of it cheap? And there's times where people are like, we just want the cheapest option. We're not for you. Like, save your money. Save my time. $99 today. That's it.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just not going to waste everyone's time.
Yeah, but you asked that early on and you call, right? So you know right away. I'm just trying to get this.
Yeah.
We're moving.
What's the goal?
Here.
Yeah.
I got to get this because they're selling the house, and they said, like, if I don't get this done,
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, kind of wrapping up.
Sure.
What advice would you have to a young Lewis that had just started at Canon, that might have made you more successful faster? So basically, to any young or newer service electrician.
I would say stick with it. It's weird. It's uncomfortable, especially if you've never done it before. Most importantly, invest in yourself. Read some books. Watch YouTube. Check out his channel. I did the same thing. Chris Voss was a really good book to read. He's used to be like an FBI negotiator. Got your kid back from Haiti over the phone. Watch guys that do sales. Read books about psychology. Read books about how people's brains work and how you can navigate a system and make it work for you. But if you're not investing in yourself, then don't expect anything to come out of it. And ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask the older guys. Don't be like me and skip training meetings because it was weird and you didn't like it. If it's something you're interested in, you think you can make it work, do it.
Yeah, that's great. What motivates you to succeed, day in, day out?
That's changed a lot in the last couple of years. When I first started, my why was selfish. It was, I have something to prove to myself. I didn't think I could do this. I told everyone I can't do this. I want to do it. I want to prove something. As time progressed, it became more of like a communal thing. I want to be in a financial situation where I can help my family. I can support myself. If someone needs something, I can do it for them. And in the last probably year or so, it's really transitioned to financial stability, obviously, for myself. I'm entering a new phase of life that is going to require more of that financial stability. But also, too, like we've kind of narrowed down as a company. We've gotten lean. And I feel like my why is now being able to do my job sufficient enough that I can make sure the rest of the guys that I work with have money, have out their 40 hours so they can do the same things that I want to go do.
Yeah.
So it's definitely become less about proving something to myself and making sure the rest of the guys that I work with are taken care of too.
What's it like working in a company like that? It sounds like where you're like, I really care about these other guys. I'm not just here to get mine and go home. Where does that come from in the company? What's that like?
It's awesome. Like I said, I've bounced around a few different companies, and they've all been fine. The atmosphere at Canon is just so much different. We hire, for the most part, based off a personality test, which I don't know why I got hired because I don't fit the script at all. But everyone's so alike yet different as far as like interests, but personalities, they definitely cross over. And when you're out taking that late call or you're working late and you got 4 guys signing up to come help you, and they're going to skip dinner with their families or skip, whatever they had planned that night, it definitely creates an atmosphere that is hard to beat.
Yeah. That's cool. Why do you think people buy from you, ultimately?
I think you said earlier, I mean, I do try and build trust.
Yeah.
Like I said, like I'm not necessarily there to be your friend, but sometimes you trust people that aren't your friend because they're not your friend.
Yeah.
And they just give it to you the way it's supposed to be. And I try and be as professional as I possibly can be.
Yeah.
And that, I guess that also kind of crosses over with the trust and being straightforward.
Sure.
That's a hard question. I never even thought about that. Never even thought about it.
Because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last question. What's it like being at an event like this, being a part of Certain Path? You've got all these other rock star electricians you get to talk to.
Yeah.
You're going to walk up across the stage tonight at Gala.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What's this experience like?
You know, it's really cool. Last year was my first time here. It was first time I was a crown champ, walk across stage. It was a ton of fun. This year was so much different because I was actually a part of the event. Doing the crown champ panel yesterday, doing this today. It makes me feel like all the work that I've done for the last year is actually worth it.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to hit crown champ just so I can go take a trip somewhere. I'd be just as happy staying at home. But the people that I get to meet and hearing the stories about, you know, where people came from and how they got to where they're going is super cool. Being a part of something bigger, and there's more companies than just little old Canon, a part of this massive thing, this massive umbrella is awesome. Yeah. And it definitely makes you think, like, you know, on your bad days at work, I'm not the only one dealing with this. There's
Right.
700 dudes that are at Expo in the springtime that are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, so it definitely makes you feel like you're a part of something bigger. There's even though you don't know everyone here, there's definitely a sense of camaraderie and friendship. Yeah.
Very good. Liz, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Support for this podcast comes from HD Supply. At HD Supply, our job is helping you do yours. We are uniquely positioned to help drive your business through unrivaled access to professional-grade plumbing, electrical, and HVAC products and innovative business solutions such as our Stockwise inventory management program, fully customizable to meet your needs and improve productivity. Our national network of distribution centers and more than 2,200 store locations nationwide provide a national reach with a local focus, providing unmatched convenience and product availability. We power pros to do more.
The Successful Contractor Podcast is part of the Certain Path family. Certain Path builds successful home service businesses and has for 23 years. We do it by providing contractors with a proven path to success, professional coaching, software solutions, and a member community of over 1,000 contractors just like you. Doubling your sales with a 20% net profit and an inspiring company culture is all possible. Let us show you the way. With Certain Path, success is made certain. Visit www.mycertainpath.com for more information.